be an expert in this business, but I do a lot of research because being a part of a media industry. But knowing Harish from a long time, I think almost 15 years, I know him 15 years, more than 15 years. And when he called me for this, I said, where is my role in this? I can only talk about what Trump did when he was sworn in. And he said, dig, drill, baby, drill. Okay, well, US can do that because it has shale oil. And I'm surprised that despite having Elon Musk by his side, he still is insisting on going for a fossil fuel vehicle. That is because that's a politics in US. Let us forget what US does. Let us look at what our problems are. Principally, a lot of us are thrilled to see green number plates as we drive on the roads. Other day I saw an interview with Bhavesh of Ola speaking to one of my friends on one of the YouTube channels, and where he was taking him around a very futuristic factory, and it looks all so good. Sometimes it feels like, is it really true? But one of my main grouses is public transport, and this is where I'll focus on in my talk. I think I have about 5 minutes. I'll just finish in 5 minutes. Okay. One of the major problems, we all focus on private sector, especially commercial, non-commercial vehicles. We talk about domestic vehicles, two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and bit of four-wheelers there. We get finance for that. We buy it as a private vehicle. But look at the problem with the entire thing has to do with the transport vehicles. That is going to be the main issue in India going forward. Because one thing we are seeing is that in Hyderabad, we see a lot of electric vehicles now going around. We feel happy about it, despite the low occupancy in that. But we all know that the PM Electric Drive Revolution, what's called Prime E-Drive, did bring in a lot of finance into buying more buses. Delhi saw an earlier adoption. We saw that they went to CNG because they had a huge thing, and Supreme Court's focus is always in Delhi. It doesn't go beyond Delhi, doesn't look at other cities. In fact, I had the numbers with me which I was digging out from my research. It shows that 4,391 crores was used to procure 14,028 buses. You may correct me if I'm wrong. There may be an upgradation in numbers to buy electric vehicles in just 9 cities. And I'm sure India has hundreds of cities where this problem is there. But what is sad, in fact, I come from a state, even though I grew up in Hyderabad, I come from Kerala, where 95% of the transport network is private. And private players don't get any subsidy, any government encouragement in the transport network. We may feel good in Hyderabad because we are depending on TSRTC for that matter. In fact, I just dig out a few more numbers. Under the FAME 1, 425 buses were bought in the public sector, or what we call the State Transport Corporation, with subsidies. On FAME 2, it became 7,120. Numbers have gone up significantly. But look at the numbers from a private and public sector perspective. Public transport in India, that is all your state road transport corporations, just make about 7% of the total transportation segment in India, carrying about 2.4 million registered buses. And 93% of that is in the private sector, which is totally left out of this entire bargain. In fact, one of the main grouses, if you speak to any private operator, he will say, I don't get finance for any electric vehicle. There's a huge risk of not having a resale value. Defaulting is a big problem, and this is what research shows. And also the upfront money that you need to pay is quite high. All these factors are there. But if he goes for a regular vehicle, he'll get the finance for it. That's why you see a lot of fancy Mercedes-Benz and all of the big foreign brands using those. Volvos are actually out of fashion now. It's gone to the bigger vehicles that are going across cities, where EVs cannot really work because our range now is over 250 kilometers, if I'm not wrong. Beyond that, you need to have a bigger capacity. Maybe it will happen in a couple of years. I always look back at the mobile industry, just to transgress a little bit. I bought my first mobile in 1998. That was when it was just introduced. A company called Jasmine Telia, JTM, who was in existence in Hyderabad those days. I think it's a Malaysian company. And they were later on bought in by Airtel in the 2000s. 16 rupees 40 paisa for incoming, 16 rupees 40 paisa for outgoing. You get scared of picking up calls. And then you look at a pager and then you ask, page karo, then I will call back from a landline. The entire purpose of mobile phone is defeated. But as the year grew by, we saw it coming down to 8 rupees, 4 rupees, 2 rupees. Now they say you talk as much as you want. Data is the cheapest in India, I can tell you, because I worked in Bangkok, where data is prohibitively expensive. In fact, my airtime roaming from India was cheaper than the data in Bangkok. Anyway, I just was bringing, because when you have talk of volumes, that is where the volume game comes in. In fact, I looked at the ridership details also. I was thinking, how much does it carry? You know, in India, this 97% of the private sector buses, let us keep a significant portion as interstate or intercity travels, takes in 22 crore passengers every day. This is within the 250 kilometer segment, which means they are traveling within a city. A maximum interest goes from Hyderabad to Siddipet, Hyderabad to Karimnagar and comes back. Okay, still it is not covered to 40. Now, 40% of that falls in the intercity pass. So you can imagine within 250 to 200, 300 kilometers they can run on a single charge. So I think the time has come now for policymakers, for people to recommend to push the private sector players into being given the same incentives, so that, because one of the biggest problems that we're facing, unlike Singapore and unlike London, we allow our people to drive into the city during peak hours. In those cities, they disincentivize people to drive into the city. They charge you a toll for driving into the peak hour cities. They ask you to use the metros and other forms of public transport. But in Hyderabad today, the metro is as worse as Bombay local train. You know, they carry into the train and they carry out of the train also. That is how it has become. 5.5 lakh passengers a day is huge for a city like Hyderabad with 16 kilometers of track. Anyway, things are improving on that front. But the number that really astounded me, and you can correct me again, is that India needs to replace 8 lakh diesel buses by 2030. We are at 2025. We have 5 years to replace 8 lakh buses with electric. Now, I'm not really sure, and I'm not an academic, I'm not an expert like him, to understand whether we can do it. But forget the infrastructure part of it. Charging and all we can still create. I gave the mobile example as one, how it is quickly ramped up in no time. People used to charge their mobiles in villages using solar stuff and all that. Now everybody is, once you charge, it works for 3 days in good phones. Will we be able to take care of the public transport? I leave that open to the debate, because unless we handle that, we are just catering to the creme de la creme, the elite part of the city. And the major part, which is the private sector buses, is being left out. I'm not talking of the big ones, which go state to state, again, just to reinforce, just within the city and just going out of the city and coming back. This is my 2 penny statements on this. Thank you very much.